Hi, I'm Melissa Sobotka, and we're here at AQS QuiltWeek with my solo exhibit, Focus and Fiber. Now, to show you that everyone starts somewhere, this is the first quilt I ever made, and I had no instruction at all. A friend just told me, oh, put a little batting in between some fabric and stitch it and you'll have an art quilt. And I didn't know what an art quilt was, so I just imagined what it would be. And I took some scraps I had and I came up with this picture. For something a little different and totally separate from anything I've ever done, I did some experimenting with a whole cloth quilt. This is a photograph that I had printed on fabric and then I just took to quilting it. It's called mudra. Down at the bottom I even have mala beads. There are 8 complete malas down here. The reason for calling this exhibit Focus and Fiber is that I base the majority of my quilts on what I see through my camera lens. This quilt is based on a picture I took in Venice. It was a shop window and I just loved the depth in it. And there's so many masks I can't even count them all. But this one is the longest I spent on a quilt. It took me a year to make this one. And everything you see is cut out of fabric, with the exception of the old master paintings in it. Those were printed on the computer on fabric. But the rest was all cut out by hand and a little bit of ink added here and there. It's called Venetian Menagerie. Like I said, I always have my camera with me. Even when I was shopping in New York City, I found these spools on a wall and I just thought they were so interesting, the texture of them. So I've gone about the same way I approach every quilt. Start in little pieces. Don't look at the whole thing, it's overwhelming. I just work on a little section right in front of me and I'm still working from a photograph, and by looking at that small area I'm able to reproduce it just in fabric with a little ink, and then eventually it builds and builds and you get something large like this. And here's my quilt, Chihuly's Gondola, based on a photograph I took of the work of Chihuly, who is a wonderfully gifted artist doing glass sculpture. People ask me all the time, how did you create this? It's got so much depth. Well, like everything, I just approach it little bit by little bit. So each day I would come to my studio and do one ball, and the next day I would do another ball. And every day I'd fall in love with each ball because there's such wonderful colors. And then I added texture with different shapes for quilting. It's one of my favorites. So I hope you can make it to AQS QuiltWeek, either in Lancaster or Paducah, and see this special exhibit of mine along with many other wonderful quilts.